Ladies and gentlemen, it is your championship edition of Fourth and Frames. I'm Red Manuel. Took a week off last week, had some things going on. That is Nate Markham. That is Drew Scott. It is week 17, which means for most of us, it is championship week, which means we need to give you the best we can in letting you know who your smash plays are this week and who your pass plays are this week. So as we tell you every week, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it popping.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Hey, I went 17 weeks or 16 weeks without a fumble and finally had one. But what is this media what's this media assets tab? StreamYard? I was over here looking for my tab and I've never even heard of that before. What are we doing?
Look, Drew, it's okay.
That's what I get for not being prepared. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that's I did not stay ready, so I had to get ready.
Look, I'm gonna just put it this way: you just Leon led it at the 1 yard line, and it's fine, buddy. We forgive you anyway.
Sure did.
So,
sure did.
But to all our listeners, all of our watchers, all of our subscribers, welcome into Fourth and Frames. And as we tell you every week, do not forget to like and subscribe and review to catch any time a new podcast or short form video drops from fantasyandframes.com. And starting in 2025, you can search for all of our podcasts here at Fantasy and Frames by name, wherever you listen to podcasts. For us, make sure to subscribe to the Fourth and Frames podcast. Stay locked in with us. We will be taking some time off, but we will be coming back with a vengeance sooner rather than later. And don't forget to lock in at fantasyandframes.com for the latest ranking in weekly, IDP, Dynasty rankings, articles, takes, news and notes, whatever it is, we've got you taken care of. So let's go ahead and let's just ask you, Drew, Santa passed over the past couple of days, man. How was your Christmas?
I was great, man. Got to hang out with the family, spend time with the kids, watch them open their presents, which is always fun. And then just relax most of the day, watch a little football, Netflix. Well done. The horror story the horror story that was the boxing live stream wasn't near as big. The NFL broadcast was great. I had no complaints. So it was a beautiful Christmas, man.
Yeah, man. How about you, Nate?
Yeah, the same. I was really impressed with Netflix not fumbling it. Like Drew maybe had fumbled the intro, but here, you know what? You recovered the fumble really well. And I have a trivia for you guys. Which NFL player has recovered the most fumbles in NFL history?
Oh, this is good. God. I have not an idea, but I'm just gonna.
Oh no.
So it's kind of a trick question. It's
some random defensive tackle.
It's not a defensive player.
So it's some offensive lineman.
It's technically a quarterback, and he played for the Houston Oilers back in the day, and his last name is I guess not really a constellation, but
Warren Moon.
Yep, Warren Moon.
Oh, love Warren.
Yeah,
love Warren.
Would not have guessed that.
Yeah, 56 career fumbles recovered. Most fumbles recovered in a single season is David Carr with 12.
That makes sense.
And it does make a lot of sense. And Robert Mathis is the leader with the most career forced fumbles with 52. So there's that. My Christmas was great. The best present of all is after Christmas, getting to open the present that is you two on Thursday night.
Oh,
so nice.
I know.
But no, there's just Christmas over here was great as well. I mean, my wife took a couple of videos of the kids opening presents, and there's just a great one of my daughter just getting the one thing that she wanted more than anything for Christmas, and just the look on her face. And, my son being 15, even getting a few things he was surprised with, seeing still a genuinely magical look on their faces. Man, it was awesome. So, but once again, excited to be here with you guys as always. Getting ready for the new year. Next week, strangely enough, 2024 flew by. But you know what else flew by, guys? the 2024 fantasy football season, and it is now championship week. Like, so we're going to get into some news and notes and kind of talk about some things that are going to affect your championship weeks potentially. Starting with James Conner in Arizona being a game time decision. Jalen Hurts having a concussion. I would guess both of you guys would probably agree that they're not going to risk Hurts this week at all and just let them sit it out with the playoffs coming soon for them.
Yeah, that's what I would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dallas having a done season. They're eliminated. CeeDee Lamb was shut down. So that's a big one for fantasy players more than anything else. Gus Edwards ruled out for the week. J.K. Dobbins set to return. What do you guys expect his fantasy role to be this week for that team?
I've got him as a borderline RB2 if he plays. It's a good matchup against New England. And I think he'll be, if he's out there, I think he'll get the majority of the carries. And if they find themselves on the goal line, I think it'll be JK. So he'll be a borderline running back 2 for me, probably.
Yeah, I like the opportunity, like you said, against New England's great. I don't know what the usage will be. I still think that maybe Kamani Vidal could have just enough workload that it will reduce. I just want to see what the Chargers are going to do since they've been so, I don't want to say inept running the ball, because Gus Edwards even has had a good game sprinkling in here and there, but they've been so passing. It's like I want to see them get the lead for ahead of New England. Let JK get 15 plus carries, and if that's the case, I'm right there with you. RB2, and considering the chaos that's going on right now, you could very fit into somebody's lineup.
Guys, I want to go off script a little bit because heading into the season, there were very clear pecking orders in terms of rookie wide receiver rankings. Everybody thought it was going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and somewhere sprinkled in there was Ladd McConkey. Well, here we are with 2 weeks left in the season, and Ladd McConkey has well outperformed Marvin Harrison Jr. That's kind of been a surprising storyline for me this season, but I mean, I guess we can almost look at it next year and kind of wonder where that's going to be ADP wise, because I don't think Marvin Harrison is going to be the same dude next year that he was this year. So, I mean, that'll be an interesting storyline heading into there, but that's a long time away. Speaking of people who touch base with us every week, Albert, my man, great to see you as always. And Hector Acevedo out here spewing hated Caleb Williams, saying he needs to go back to college. So, sure, man. I mean, why not? Let's get all our kids.
I know it hasn't been number 1 overall pick, but good. But I don't think it's been that bad either.
Yeah.
Tonight hasn't been good either, but I don't think it's been quite that bad.
It's the worst and the best part is that one, a lot of his stats, of course, have been garbage time, and we've seen the positives. We've seen this offense just absolutely struggle. I mean, you have to go back week. Oh man, I just did this a couple days ago. I want to say it's week 10 that Caleb had a first half touchdown. That long ago, and he still doesn't have one. But man, he just has some. He has some plays. There was a fumble where he picked it up tonight, scrambled a little bit forward, found an open Keenan Allen. I mean, he was right in front of him. But it's those kind of plays that you see in Caleb, and you're like, all right, I know that the playmaking ability is there. It's a lot of chaos going around him from the coaching on down.
Yeah, a lot of coaching changes. Yeah, and I don't understand why they feel like they have to run the offense through Keenan Allen. That just I don't know why we're force feeding Keenan Allen targets, but and like you mentioned, a lot of turnover in that coaching staff. If we could see him have 1 year with like the same offensive mind, and someone that we're actually excited about as an offensive mind, to see what they really have. I'd be interested to see him with some coaching changes this offseason.
All these struggles, and he still managed to be the first Bears quarterback to ever crack 3,000 yards of the season. So,
that's so sad.
It's so sad. Getting back to our news and notes, Alvin Kamara still questionable heading into this week. Tua Tagovailoa was limited, as well as Tyreek Hill. Devontae Adams logging back-to-back do not practice to start the week. Added Anthony Richardson with 2 DNPs. Malik Neighbors calling himself a game-time decision. As talented as he is, that first year hasn't seemingly gone as well as it could have in New York. I mean, we'll see what happens this offseason. David Njoku with back-to-back DNPs. And Christian Watson, also a do not practice, trending towards being out this week. So in terms of Christian Watson, do y'all think he plays or does he sit this week?
If I had to guess, I would say he's going to be out.
That's what I would say too. I haven't seen anything positive on the reports yet.
I've got Dontavian Wicks in the plays and fades article this week, expecting Watson to be out. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there it is, guys. And before we get into our smash and pass plays this week, as you get closer to winning those fantasy football championships, what better way to capture your victory and immortality than by getting your own Dynasty Deck championship plaque? Sounds great, fellas. Dynasty Deck or the dynastydex.com, they provide fully customizable championship plaques for any fantasy football league, whether on offense or IDP. All you got to do as a listener is hit them with the promo code FRAMES and receive $5 off the purchase price, which is extremely affordable compared to other market prices on other websites. So listeners, you guys, Drew, Nate, whoever it is, get over to the dynastydex.com today. Get that fantasy football championship plaque. Make our boss man a little bit of extra money while you're at it, huh, fellas?
Absolutely. Hey, Jorge posted something he got into. They look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they look okay. I say that because unfortunately my name's on the
losing side.
The losing side of that one. And I worry that two of the ones that are going to be available at the end of this week will be the Fourth and Frames Dynasty League, as well as the other IDP league that Jorge has. And I get the feeling I could be on the runner-up side.
Oh, that's something we haven't talked about yet. That's something. So, yeah, me and Nate, we're playing in the Fantasy and Frames Dynasty League Championship against each other this week. And right now, you're projected to win. I'm just saying, you've got the sleeper nod right now. So it could go, it could go either way. But yeah, me and Nate, one of us will be the champ in the Fantasy and Frames Dynasty League. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, congratulations.
The Dynasty Deck's behind us.
Yeah, because it wasn't working out for me this year. But you know what is going to work out for our listeners is when we talk about these smash and pass plays, keep in mind that a smash player is a player that is outside the top 20 running backs, the top 15 running backs, the top 8 tight ends, or the top 12 quarterbacks in the Fantasy Pros Week 17 expert consensus rankings. So, Drew, I'm going to go ahead and start off with you tonight. You have a guy who has been trending upwards these past few weeks, has an MVP front runner at quarterback, has a team that has effectively shut it down for the year. It seems like it is wheels up for Khalil Shakir against the New York Jets. And tell us why, Butter.
Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty consistent so far this year. He's led the Bills in target share, receiving yards per game, yards per route run, and first read target percentage. But all that's only come out to him being the wide receiver 39 in PPR. So it's nothing crazy, but he's been a consistent wide receiver 3, a consistent flex option for you all year pretty much. And I think the matchup this week allows him to be more of a wide receiver 2 this week. He's got the Jets. They've been the 13th best matchup over the last 6 weeks for receivers, but more specifically, they're giving up the second highest points per game to wide receivers that line up over in the slot in that same time span, which is where Shakir is lined up on over 73% of his snaps this year. So dealing with games in Buffalo this time of the year can be tricky, but if the weather doesn't cooperate, it's going to be because of some rain and wind, apparently, instead of snow this week. They're forecasting 10 to 15 mile per hour winds, like a 90% chance of rain, but a lot can change between now and Sunday. That's just something to keep an eye on because it can really affect the pass catchers. I mean, if you watch the mess that was the 49ers and Rams game from a couple weeks ago, it makes it tough on them. So that is something to keep an eye on. But assuming the weather cooperates, I think the matchup is set up for Shakir to be a smash play this week.
Yes, indeed. And that kind of works because, like you said, this has just been a guy that has been rock solid and consistent all year, but just kind of has been, flex-worthy guy. But in a week like this where you expect them to have a good opportunity, yeah, we're all about that. So, Nate, seems to be a love affair with this matchup this week because you were taking one of the other wide receivers from the other team. So tell us why Garrett Wilson against the Buffalo Bills is the place you want to go this week.
Oh, man, I want to go anywhere where the point total is 46.5 on two offenses that, should or has been struggling over the past 6 weeks, 8 weeks, really, of slowing down the other teams. Pass catchers, especially, the Bills really over the last month have allowed the most points to opposing wide receivers, the most yards to opposing wide receivers. The Jets rushing attack, really, I know Breece Hall kind of got it going last week, but I don't think it's real efficient. The efficiency just doesn't seem to be there as much. And if they're going to trail or try to play catch up with Buffalo, they're going to do it through the air. And while Devontae Adams has been the main target, if you will, at least for high volume and high value touches in New York, if Devontae Adams, this little lingering hip issue that he hasn't practiced this week, if it has an effect at all, obviously Garrett Wilson will see an uptick in work. It's not that he needs much more than what he's already done recently. He's already, I feel like he kind of has gotten not lost in the shuffle, but I feel like he's very undervalued in terms of overall rankings right now. And the matchups are great. I mean, I personally, I look at the Christian Benford and Kyrie Elam as well as Taron Johnson matchups that Garrett Wilson can exploit. Just think it's going to be a high scoring game. I want a piece of that. And if it's Garrett Wilson or Devontae Adams, I mean, this can't fit Devontae Adams to a smash play whenever you have parameters that we have set. But I get the feeling there may be some decisions where people have Garrett Wilson in really stacked teams. And I'm just here to say, don't think that Aaron Rodgers can't support 2 wide receivers after what we've seen really over the last month and a half.
Yeah, not to mention on top of that, if Devontae Adams doesn't play this week, then that take gets a whole lot juicier and a whole lot better for you, Nate Markham. So no Devontae, all of a sudden we have a very good situation for Garrett Wilson against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I'll tell you a good situation is he was one of my smash plays last week or going into the week, and without the Nick Chubb, I'd say, concern in Cleveland, Jerome Ford against Miami. I think, Rhett, you see this as a back-to-back smash play, right?
Dude, there's just something. There are certain players that take lock is bad, but there are players that I just can't seem to quit from time to time. For some reason, Jerome Ford is one of those guys, and he heads into this week fitting those parameters as the ECR running back 18. And with the Nick Chubb injury, he has become the main dog in that backfield. Had an 80% snap share last week against Chicago Bears. Had 16 opportunities. And the thing that I love about him is you're in a championship situation, and in championship matchups, every team is going to be good. You're there for a reason. So what do you need to put you over the top? You need guys who can give you splash plays, spike weeks, those sort of things. And Jerome Ford, over the past 2 weeks, he had a run of 62 yards 2 weeks ago and a 66-yard run last week. So I understand that he's not going to be the steadiest, most consistent 5 yards per carry guy, but he's shown it throughout the year and throughout his career that there's some pop in those legs, and he's going to be able to pop a big play at some point this week in all likelihood. So Miami is a team that has been so over the course of the season against the run. They rank 15th against fantasy running backs. They have been better over the past few weeks. But when we're looking at this, who they faced the last couple weeks, Joe Mixon, who started off great for most of the season, the last couple weeks has really fallen off a cliff. And the 49ers running back situation has been a non-issue since the McCaffrey injury and the Jordan Mixon injury. It's just been a rough situation going there as well. So, yes, they've been good over the past couple weeks, but we also have to take into account those matchups as well. So, for me, I'm just looking at a guy who I've always loved as a player who has big play capability and has a steady opportunity, and looking for that to be a smash play in a championship situation.
Yeah, to your point, if you look at the last 6 weeks, Miami's run defense, it says they're the 5th toughest matchup for a running back. But you outlined the 2 weeks that they looked really good against the run. If you look at the month before that, they were the 14th best matchup. They had a couple of good weeks against run defense or run offenses that just haven't looked very good, frankly, recently. So I think it's more, to Rhett's point, I think it's more of who they've matched up with recently that makes it look like a tougher matchup than it really is. And Ford's going to get all the work. So I love it. He should be a really safe play with upside.
Yeah. And so Moving into our second smash play of the week, Nate, I'm going to go ahead and start with you because this is one of those guys that has kind of just seemed to bounce around the league forever and doesn't seem to make much of a splash, but always has a roster spot somewhere every year because he's just a good, solid football player. And you're telling me this week that, God, fantasy football always gets so weird at this time of the year, that Amir Abdullah is going to be a smash play. So talk about it. I'm so intrigued because this is one of those hilarious fantasy football end of the year things that you just kind of have to embrace the chaos.
Do. And I mean, yeah, let's look at the game. Going to New Orleans, do we expect New Orleans to get ahead and force them to play from behind, or in the other side of that, let Vegas get ahead and Alexander Madison control the backfield? And I thought about that scenario, and then I look at the last 2 weeks and I see matchups against Atlanta and Jacksonville, and neither one of those two matchups were games where they were absolutely getting dominated or completely ahead. I mean, it was a 15-9 loss and a 14-19 or a 19-14 win. And in both of those games, Amir Abdullah has now finished back-to-back top 16 running backs on the week. He was 14 in week 15 and 16 in week 16. If he's running back 17 in week 17, I think no one is going to complain there. But it's not really the groundwork. It's the fact that he's had over the last 2 weeks now market share, target share that rivals, honestly, anybody in the league, as far any running backs in the league. And I'm pulling this up again just to make sure, 18.3% target share. That is only that's fifth amongst all running backs over the last 2 weeks. Granted, small sample size, I know, but we know what we know, and that is that if he's going to get utilization, Aiden O'Connell has demonstrated that he can support checkdowns to the running back, and I'm fine with not loving I don't love that game. I think that game is ugly, and it could be just horrendous. We saw how bad New Orleans looked against Green Bay on Monday night.
Yeah,
it won't be that bad, but I think I could very easily see Amir Abdullah again see 5 to 7 targets. What will he do with that? He's been explosive with the ball. I mean, he's averaging 8.8 yards per reception over the last 2 weeks with 100 yards combined. It is not a sexy play. But again, if you have James Conner, if you were limited because you had Kenneth Walker and you didn't have Zach Charbonnet, if you maybe have a flex spot that is just wide open out there because you have to move someone in because CeeDee's out, all the names that we went through in the show sheet prior, a person like Amir Abdullah could be one of those just absolute, just sneaky pickups. Or if anything, we do this every week, guys, pick them up just to make sure that the person you're playing doesn't have to need somebody. Is that the right way to say it? Yeah. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
doesn't have to not need somebody maybe to maybe not play. So Amir Abdullah, I'd love to have a ton of statistics to back it up, but unfortunately the sample size of the last 2 weeks, sometimes you just got to, see it with your own 2 eyes and then go, why the hell not?
Yeah.
I've got him in the Plays and Fades article this week, man. I'm with it. I like it.
Yeah. The year 12 breakout is real, baby.
The one and only Robert Thomas, the real Robert Thomas. What's up,
the
man?
real one.
Joining us.
Good to have you with us as always, Robert. We appreciate your time. So, Drew, you're taking at my heartstrings here with this next smash play, buddy. I mean, you have an LSU Tiger, a guy who struggled last year and really has started to come on in here in the second half of the season, especially last week with a big breakout week. So, Kayshon Boutte against the Los Angeles Chargers. Tell us why you're all about that action this week, man.
Yeah, I calling Kayshon, it ain't your beauty, it's your booty. A smash play in championship week is something that probably only Chris Battistell could have seen coming, but here we are. If you don't remember, he did our rookie profile on Boutte. His rookie year. You should check that out. It was good stuff. But since week 8, he's been leading the Pats pass catchers in air yard share. He's second in targets per game and receiving yards per game behind Hunter Henry. And he hadn't really been doing much with those targets, but some of that can probably be explained by the fact that the Patriots receivers have had the third toughest strength of schedule since week 8 as well. But that wasn't the case last week whenever he had a plus matchup against Buffalo. He took advantage of that. 5 receptions, 7 targets, 95 yards, and his first touchdown since week 6. And I think him and Drake May can build on that and keep it rolling. They've got the Chargers defense that's been the 8th best matchup for receivers over the last 6 weeks. And they're also giving up the 6th highest amount of fantasy points per game to receivers that line up out wide, which is where Butte has lined up on over 85% of his snaps since week 8. So with the big playability that he possesses, the target volume he's been getting, I think he's set up as a smash play this week. I think he outperforms his wide receiver 58 ranking. I think he should be ranked ahead of Pop Douglas, which is not where he is right now in ECR. So he's a smash play for me this week.
You know, I want to give Chris his flowers. He is representing Fantasy and Frames hosts of past and present in the listener league. He's in the championship. It's he's going against the legend. Well, I shouldn't say legend killer, the host killer.
Yeah.
And I'm one little side note with that is that he has Tom Brady. This is Chris Battistill on his bench, repping the Tom Brady good luck charm. I'm guessing wanting to bring Brady his what was that 7th championship now. So balls to I'd say pretty savvy move. You gotta always have, have the goat on your bench just in case.
So the little edge can make all the difference. Yeah. It can make all the difference. Mr. Scampers, what's up, man? Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, Scampers, we appreciate you, bud. So let's get into our second smash play of the week. And guys, we've talked about fantasy football getting weird at the end of the season. This one's out of left field for me, so I'm just gonna embrace it because we've been here for 2 years now. For the better part of 2 years, just waiting, twiddling thumbs, hitchhiking, waiting for something, anything, any signs of life from Chigaquanquo. And the past couple weeks, fellas, Will Levis gets excommunicated from the starting lineup. Mason Rudolph steps into it. Chigaquanquo has been a big-time player, and he gets the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, who have been one of the worst teams against tight ends in terms of defending the tight end position for fantasy points all year long. And Chig is stepping into a spot where over the past 2 weeks, my man has had 21 targets and 17 receptions. So we're talking about a big-time opportunity first off. He has not hit the end zone, which tight ends, we like getting touchdowns. Yet without scoring touchdowns, Chigaquanquo has been the tight end 7 and the tight end 3 over the past 2 weeks. So, guys, that's enough for me to say he's probably a safe start for you guys. And like we said, in a week where spike weeks matter, probably more than most weeks, this is the type of guy you want to have in your lineups. He's got the eye of his quarterback. I don't care that Mason Rudolph isn't good. We're not talking about Mason Rudolph. We're talking about Chigaquanquo's opportunity right now. And remember, like we said, these spike weeks are good stuff, and the opportunity has been there for the last 2 weeks for Chigaquanquo. So we're just going to go ahead and sing it out real quick. Chiggy, can't you see? Sometimes your moves just hypnotize me. And in championship week, we're hoping that your flashy ways makes other people broke and people who pay him so paid.
There you go.
Go off there, man. Yeah, he is also making an appearance in the Plays and Pays article for me this week as a play. So I'm definitely with you on that. I want to bring this up because I'm struggling with something very similar this week in my so along with the Fourth and Frames Dynasty League, I'm also fortunate enough to be playing in my home league Dynasty League Championship. And I have a start and set dilemma that I need to run by you guys and Scampers and everybody else in the chat. I would love your opinion on this as well. And it's one of these players that he brings up right here. He said, benching Marv last week got me to the finals. I want to do it again. So he's obviously going to go off. And that's what I'm worried about too. He's got a matchup with the Rams. The first time the Rams and Cardinals played each other was in week 2. It was one of the last times that the Cardinals offense looked functional. But in that week, we got the weekly Kansas City sucks coming in. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Susie.
But week 2, that was the Marv was the wide receiver 1 on the week. He had 2 touchdowns that week. And so I've got Marv. This is half PPR. I've got Marvin Harrison Jr., I've got Khalil Shakir, and I've got Rashad White. And I need to start one of them in half PPR. So Rashad White's got the great matchup against Carolina, but he's obviously, second fiddle to Bucky Irving. You got Khalil Shakir against the Jets, and then you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. against the Rams. I got to play one.
Oh man,
Do you need floor or ceiling? That's the question.
I'm favored right now. But, it's sleeper projections. Anything can happen. But right now I'm favored to win 125 to 106 on sleeper.
Okay. So give or take a 19-point cushion. Based off of that, and the projections, I'm kind of leaning Shakir here. Like you said, the higher over-under for the week kind of plays into his hands. Marvin Harrison has been so hit or miss, as has that offense. You know what Josh Allen is. You know Josh Allen is looking for Khalil Shakir. I kind of like Shakir in that spot.
Yeah, I think I do too. I do think Rashad White is in a great spot. Carolina's about as generous as anybody. And
man, they're so bad.
They are, but man, I don't want to go in, and even if the last couple of weeks, his the 14% target share, fantastic. That's obviously what you're going to bank it on. But I also just can see a situation where they're up and you don't need to check down nearly as much. And it's that 37% or 32% of the rush attempts stays consistent, and he has to be as explosive as he can be. I just feel like Shakir has a pretty safe pathway to an 18% plus target share. And maybe that's unfair to assume with Buffalo, because it could very easily go in any direction with Josh Allen. It's tricky, but I agree with Rhett. I would go Khalil Shakir, then Marv might be second in that listing for me, but I don't know. I get it, brother. I get it. It sucks.
What I'm struggling with the most too is in this league, I purposely tanked last year. We go by max points possible. And so if you want to tank, you actually have to trade away your good players so that they're not accumulating points on your team.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I purposely tanked last season, got the number 1 overall pick for Marv, and then went worst to first this year. I'm the number 1 seed. 12-2, made a bunch of moves, and so, but Marv is the piece I've built this thing around, and now I'm considering not even playing him in a championship, and that just doesn't sit right with me, man. Let me ask you this: would it make a difference if I told you I also had Kyler at quarterback?
Probably not. It probably wouldn't. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I don't
spend enough time on this on my start.
No. That's the. If we can help,
we got a lot to talk about tonight, but I'm struggling with this one, man. I'm not gonna lie.
But yeah, so that was our first our smash players. We had Jerome Ford, Garrett Wilson, and Khalil Shakir, Chika Kwankwo, Amir Abdullah, and Keyshawn Butte. Let's get into those smash guys, which are past guys, which are players that are inside the top 35 receivers, top 20 running backs, top 12 tight ends, and the top 20 quarterbacks in Fantasy Pros Week 17 ECR that we are expecting to underperform this week. So, Drew, you are going to a place where we've gone a lot this season. This has been a matchup that we've been telling people to avoid pretty much all year. Not much is going to change now, especially with the Dallas Cowboys being out of playoff contention. So why is Rico Dowdle a bad matchup against the Eagles?
Yeah, last week was a rough one for Rico, man. He failed to hit over 30 rushing yards for the first time since week 11. And I don't think it's going to get much easier this week. The Eagles defense has been the toughest matchup for running backs over the last six weeks. And that includes matchups against Kyron Williams, Derrick Henry, Chuba Hubbard, running backs that have been very productive this year. Against Philadelphia, they were not. And they just got done holding Brian Robinson Jr. to 24 rushing yards last week. So with how this Eagles offense can score points, it wouldn't really surprise me to see Dallas have to play catch up a decent amount in this game and end up asking Cooper Rush to throw the ball 35 times compared to Dowdle getting 13 carries like he had last week against Tampa Bay. So I don't like how this is looking out based on how the Eagles defense has played and then their willingness to to chuck it, even if it is with Cooper Rush. I understand if you feel like you can't bench him, given how well he has played since he's taken over the starting role, but I would just have low expectations this week. The Fantasy Pros Week 17 ECR has him as running back 19. I got him down running back 25 for the week, though, so he's a pass for me if possible.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's one of those things where you're at a point where he struggled last week. There's been an elite defense, and it's always side by side of Cooper Rush versus Dak Prescott's stats this season. Cooper Rush has been surprisingly efficient considering what the expectations were in that spot. But with CD being out, that kind of changes things there as well too. Scampers, our man has a question. He's got that Marvin Harrison Jr. Struggle going on tonight as well. His struggle is Marvin Harrison, Romeo Doubs in Minnesota, or the aforementioned Amir Abdullah. Where y'all going with that one?
And I think Abdullah is a smash play, but I don't know if I'm smashing enough to go past Marv. Just the ceiling for Amir Abdullah is probably where Marv's median floor should be if they played, he said, half point PPR. I won't use week 2 as like the barometer, the baseline, because it was blow up, deep bombs. But the Rams have been pretty generous. I think that it's going to go back and forth. I do see a high scoring game. I have a hard time believing he doesn't get involved enough to be ahead of Romeo Doubs and Amir Abdullah. But what do you think of Romeo Doubs? You think you talked about Dontavian Wicks earlier. I think he's the recipient of more of the work and more likely to benefit Christian Watson's absence. But do you feel more comfortable with Doubs without Watson?
I mean, Dobbs' snaps are always going to be there. And what he typically lines up on the outside, right?
Yeah, he'll be on the outside opposite Wicks.
Yeah, Minnesota, they give up over the last 6 weeks, they've given up the second highest amount of points per game to wide receivers that line up out wide. So that is why I like Wicks so much, and Dobbs would fit that description as well. So and Jordan Love clearly trusts him, whenever they're in scoring scenarios, it seems like he's looking for Romeo Doubs. So I get why it would be tough to try to pick between these three guys. I think in this situation, I would probably go Marv. But I could definitely see why it would be a struggle, though.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with me is just that Green Bay wide receiver room has just been so hard to pinpoint all season long. I mean, none of those guys really have had breakout stats. So, I mean, to ask you to put make a prediction on which of those guys is going to be the guy on a week-to-week basis. I mean, I've kind of been under the impression where I've just kind of been avoiding all three of them for the most part all year. But it's championship week, and you got to play somebody if you have a Green Bay wide receiver. So it's just a matter of picking your poison and hoping it works out for you, because that's pretty much what that situation has been all year long. So Scamper says, thank you. And no, Scampers, we appreciate you for locking in with us every week, man. So, Nate, your pass play this week, I mean, one of them, big name, playing one of these elite teams. Tell us about Deebo Samuel and why you're passing on him against the Detroit Lions.
Man, you had it in the show sheet that the spike play is how you win, and those spike weeks are definitely valuable in winning championships. And unfortunately, one of my concerns is chasing spike weeks, and that's what I feel like a lot of people, I mean, myself included, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Deebo as a spot, and I'm thinking, I see last week, and it finally, like for the last couple of weeks now, without Trent Williams, with Juwan Jennings being banged up, but no Brandon Ayuk, or not Juwan Jennings being banged up, but no Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings being the only other viable option without CMC, and obviously Kittle's there. But I just thought that the offense should 100% play into Deebo Samuel's strengths, which is short to intermediate work. Let him get the ball in space and do something with it. And yet they finally this past week did it. I don't trust that that's the norm going forward. I feel like it was almost more of an outlier, which is crazy. But look at Debo. If you had to guess just on the season, how many wide receiver one finishes he's had in, say, half point PPR, I would have been shocked to find out that it's only 2. I would have wholly considered, I guess 3. I take that back. Week 1, he just edged in. But besides that, he's had as bad a games as the wide receivers 69, 54, 94, 140. I mean, these are non-existent games that, granted, some injury like week 7, the week 7 game. But I feel like we are chasing last week a little bit more. Detroit, this is such a weird statistic that I don't know how much really means anything, but they've allowed a grand total of 2 yards rushing to wide receivers over the past month. Now, is that a product of who they've played? Probably, because most wide receivers aren't rushing the ball as much as Debo.
Yeah, they're not Debo, that's for sure.
But, it's, if there's one strength Detroit has is more up front, despite the injuries that they've had. I don't know. I would love to back it up with, over the last 6 weeks, players out of it lining up in the backfield have scored 25% less.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to trust that last week being a one-off scenario is the safer play. There will be many people who don't have a better option, and they've gotten to the championship with Debo in their lineup. If that's the case, then they're okay, because they've gotten 4 and 5 points out of him for the last
So you got a really good
9
team if
weeks.
you made it this far starting Debo all year.
That's exactly right. And that's kind of the difficult process we've had with this week is, if these people have these bums on their team that we're passing on, they probably did pretty well around them. But yeah, I'm out on Debo as much as I kind of been a supporter. I like his skill set, but I just don't like what I've seen.
Yep, I'm with you. I completely agree.
And what a perfect segue into where I'm going to go right now. Guys that I love the skill set, I just haven't seen it, especially this season. Guys, Breece Hall against the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I get the Buffalo Bills have not been a great matchup. Been a great matchup for a lot of running backs and a lot of offenses this season. But when I dug into the Breece Hall profile for this season, heading into this week, I mean, this has been a guy that has taken people for a ride all season long. He's been up, he's been down, he's been mostly down. It's fair to say that Breece Hall, with the preseason expectations, has been a major disappointment for people, which is a shame, because he is still the best running back in that room. He's still the most talented dude in that room, and it's clear to see why. But at the same time, Breece Hall has built his brand on 2 things. One of them has been incredible explosiveness, and the other one has been pretty good efficiency, and he's been neither of those things this year. And to illustrate that, guys, let's play a game. If you were to look at the show sheet, and maybe Drew did, maybe you guys didn't, I don't know. But when do you guys think was the last time Breece Hall broke off a run of 20 yards or better?
I mean, it's Breece Hall. It couldn't have been that long ago. I'm assuming you're asking me because it's been a long time, but I would say 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Hell, I would have assumed last week was the best week he's had in some time, but I think that was all out of the receiving work. I don't think he's had really anything on the ground explosive, but I'd be intrigued to hear.
Breece Hall hasn't had a 20-plus yard run since week 6.
Damn.
Against Buffalo, surprisingly enough.
So Breece Hall right now is a volume-based player. He's getting a lot of passing game work. He's got 53 receptions this year. That's fine. But whenever you're looking at a guy in a championship situation, you mentioned Garrett Wilson being a potential smash play. Maybe he gets a good bit of receptions this week. Maybe they throw the ball a ton. Maybe Breece Hall ends up with 8 receptions this week, and my entire take is a wash. But in the running game right now, I can't put my faith in Breece Hall because it just hasn't been there. And if they're throwing the ball a lot, if they're throwing the ball downfield, if they get into a shootout type of situation where they can push the ball downfield, I don't see it being a great week for Breece Hall. And I think somebody, because of that, is probably going to start him because you need to at this point because it is championship week and there's upside there. But it's just a scary, scary situation for me.
I don't blame you. I feel like I haven't had trust, like real consistent trust in Breece Hall going back till, like I started to feel like around week 11, week 10, week 11, when he had, a couple, he had the touchdown on week 11, but it's just been, he has 7 total touchdowns on the season, and none of which, like, he's just had sprinkles of such inefficient games. 2.6 yards per carry, 3.4, 3.4, 3.2, 3.3, 3.7. That's not Breece Hall numbers, and I just don't think Buffalo's a team that you're going to get that super explosive game multiple times out of Hall. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. It's just a lot of fine from Breece Hall this year. What's Breece Hall been? He's been fine. Like, he's hovering that RB2 range. He's averaging 4.1 yards per carry. He's caught 50 balls. He has 7 total touchdowns. He's got 188 fantasy points for the season. He's fine. And fine is good in a flex spot. Fine is good in an RB2 spot. But it's Breece Hall. He's one of these names where you kind of just expect him to come out and have a big week every once in a while. And that, frankly, hasn't happened on a major level. So our man T Money, thank you for joining us. He has a question about DST. Eagles or Chargers, his opponents, Pittsburgh Steelers, put up 0 points. So which one are you going with this week?
Drew, what do you got?
Give me the Eagles. Like the matchup against Dallas, like the fact that the Eagles are at home. Matchup against New England isn't as bad, but the Chargers do have to go cross country, and Drake made that offense. They're looking a little bit better. So give me the Eagles defense.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think this might be the defense time to stand up and win one without Jalen Hurts, and and really show the rest of the NFL that their defense is really elite and can go in and win big games without an offense that might be as dangerous. And Rhett, I'll tell you that little segue there kind of sets up explaining one of my passes in addition to the other ones we've said. I'm concerned about Devontae Smith. I really am. I really think that if we don't have Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett is Kenny Pickett. He had some decent throws last week, I know. But, if you're going to have this could probably go both ways. This could probably be an A.J. Brown and a Devontae Smith concern to the point of pass for A.J. Brown. I didn't feel that strong. I felt like A.J. Brown was the one who actually helped Kenny Pickett with making sure he was getting some of the completions he did. He was using his body and really manhandling the defense. It's Devontae Smith that I worry about Kenny Pickett actually getting the ball to in space and making sure that he's viable for usage or what he can turn those 6 to 7, maybe 8 targets into. I just get the feeling it's going to be Saquon on the ground the entire time. I don't think Kenny Pickett throws the ball more than 25, 28 times. And I think Devontae Smith is going to have one of those 5 for 55 weeks, which would be okay if, you weren't in the championship. And if I had a time machine, I'd go back and I would say pass on every player in tonight's game because, as Scamper said, finally that game is over. And
3 field goals, man.
Atrocious. Thursday night football again comes through in the clutch of making sure that people go to bed early on Thursday, leading into Friday, and hope for Sunday to be better. So yeah, Devontae Smith. That's I'm concerned for sure.
And then
sometimes when a block goes bad.
Yeah. Caesar. I've been there for sure.
Absolutely.
So Drew, go ahead and talk about your second smash play for us, pass play for us. A guy who has been pretty good so far throughout the season, but you're telling me this week it ain't the week for J-Mo Williams against the San Francisco 49ers. So speak on it, break Nate's heart, and tell us why.
Yeah, there's nothing like having somebody that picked him as a my guy this year, and then our wonderful listeners and viewers telling them to pass on the guy that finished as the wide receiver for last week. But hey, here goes nothing. The usage definitely hasn't been the concern. He's seen at least 7 targets in all but one game since week 12. And that one game, he still had 5 targets. So like he's been fine in that department, perfectly fine. But even with all those targets, last week was the first time since week 11 that he's finished inside the top 24 receivers. And this week, he gets the 49ers. They've been the toughest matchup, number one uno over the last 6 weeks. That includes matchups against the Dolphins pass catchers, the Rams, the Bears, the Packers, the Seahawks, like good receiver rooms. It's not like they're just cakewalking to making it look like they're a tough defense. Jameson, he moves around a decent amount. About 65% of his routes have been out wide, the other 35% in the slot. But lately, it hasn't mattered where you line up against the Niners. They've been giving up the 8th lowest points per game to receivers over the last 6 weeks that line up out wide, and the 4th lowest to receivers that line up in the slot. So one thing Jameson does have going for him is the Lions defense is so beat up that they might just be forced to throw the ball 50 times because they're going to be constantly trying to catch up. And even though Goff is on the road, at least it's in San Francisco and not a cold weather area. So there's, less concern. I mean, him playing in Cali, he's going to be very comfortable there. So don't have to worry about like the usual road Goff worries that we might have to factor in this week. I don't think so anyway. I'm not saying that you can't start him. He still obviously has plenty of upside. He can make my ranking look hilarious in one play. I still have him as my wide receiver 36 for the week. So he still could be a flex option if you don't have better options. He still could be playable, but I'm worried.
I hate you, but I respect it. Respect it. No,
I knew that would go over well.
The good news is, like you said, the spots where I have him, he's been my 3 or my flex if I start even 3 wide receivers, and so that is more than acceptable, and I'm totally fine. But I do see exactly where you're coming from, it's process. It's still a process. And if he just beats a corner deep on one play because the corner slipped, then it makes up. But that still doesn't mean that it was good or bad process. So just remember that when he goes. I'll
tell myself that whenever he's the wide receiver 1 this week.
Exactly.
One bad process.
No, just unlucky.
Yeah, that's it.
So getting into our last pass play for the week, guys. This is one of those ones where just like you broke Nate's heart just now, I think I'm going to break my own heart right now in calling Sam Darnold a pass against the Green Bay Packers this week, because Sam Darnold has been probably my favorite story in football this season. I mean, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, just steady throughout the year. Top 7 fantasy quarterback. I mean, a lot of things just to love about a guy who just needed a good redemption story. And I don't want to do this. But when you have the worst matchup for quarterbacks in championship week, and the Green Bay Packers are coming off of a play where they are especially feeling themselves, it's not great. Like, Sam Darnold has been the quarterback 9 this year. He's also taken 45 sacks. Where the Green Bay Packers have 43 sacks on the season, and usually when you have a team like that, you have one guy who kind of seems to be carrying the load. I mean, Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson having a great season off of the edge. The Green Bay Packers have gotten to the quarterback 43 times this year, and their leader in sacks is Rashawn Gary. He only has 6.5 sacks on the year. So what does that tell you about what they're doing? They're coming from a variety of angles. They're coming from a variety of places. A lot of different guys are making an impact against that defensive line. Off of that defensive line and off of that defense. And on top of that, they've been great defending the pass as well. Xavier McKinney out of the safety position has been absolutely unreal this year. He's had 7 interceptions and 10 passes defended this year as a safety. So it just all adds up to a spot where I know Sam Darnold has really good weapons. And just like you guys said, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, they can make me look silly in a heartbeat. Like, there's no doubt about that. But at the same time, we're going to talk about process. It's just not a great spot this week playing that defense with the way that they attack quarterbacks. It's not a great spot to thrive. And it just might be a spot with the Minnesota Vikings, who are in a very good spot in terms of the playoffs. They may just keep it grounded this week. And if they keep it grounded and they keep it on the ground against that pass defense, it doesn't make for a great Sam Darnold equation. So he's a pass for me this week.
Yeah, he almost made the fades portion of the quarterback plays and fades article this week. I ended up leaving him out. I had him as a fade last week because he had a tough matchup against Seattle, and he gave me the middle finger on that one. And so I didn't put him back in this week, but I definitely considered it. Green Bay's tough, man. That defense is playing really well. So that's going to be a really fun game. That whole NFC North is such a battle, man. All those games are so much fun to watch.
And look, I think all we've learned tonight, if you've learned nothing from us tonight, several of the guys we mentioned have been in Drew Scott's plays and phase article on fantasyandframes.com this week. So go check that out. Go check out everything we have going on over there. Tomorrow. Yeah, it should be out tomorrow. So whenever that drops, go check it out and and you'll see his rationale behind all the players that he's saying you should play and you should perhaps fall back a little bit this week. So, fellas, before we get out of here, is there anything else you guys want to add or what?
Congratulations on your victory in the league, Drew. That was a
this guy
got that
a reverse jinx.
Wow, oh, that's cold-blooded. I would never do that.
As of right now, Thursday Night Football is now over. We both have players going in Thursday Night Football, unfortunately.
1 point.
Sleeper has him projected to beat me by less than 3 points, like 2.5 points. So it's looking like it's going to be a close one. So hopefully this reverse jinx will reverse jinx itself again, and him end up actually costing himself. Fingers crossed.
The Uno reverse card thrown out on me. Dang.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So
smart.
I don't know if you fellas are in any other championships this weekend, but good luck to you on those. I think that's really that's the important thing. That's all that matters right now. So best of luck in those big week 17 games. And I hope none of you listening. I hope this isn't the semifinals for any of you out there, and you're not playing in any week 18 championships. But if you are, we're here for the people. We'll be back next week for week 18 smash or pass as well. We're not taking that week off because we know that there are some poor souls out there that have to do it in week 18. So we'll be here for you next week too.
No days off here at 4th and Frame. So
that's right.
With that, we got the Stew with JT Brew coming up at 10:30 tonight. So for myself, Rhett Manuel at R Manuel Sports, for Drew Scott below me at Drew3MR, and for Nate Markham at Nate Markham, as our boy Chris Battista always like to say, toodles.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a